Everybody, Courtney Atkinson here from the Dooryard Union. This is a show about entrepreneurs and just badass people that have done really cool things, and it gives me an opportunity to chat with them. Today I'm chatting with Jeremy Dukin from Gentleman 3. Hey Jeremy.
All right, Courtney.
I'm awesome. So some of you know, and Jeremy certainly knows, that we did this once last week.
We did.
I was in charge of technology, and it was not at the Jess FM studio. And it didn't go so well. And it's too bad because you were awesome. I mean, you're awesome all the time, but I felt like we captured some awesomeness.
We both had a cold and we coughed every 30 seconds.
It's true, we did. So I guess now we're in better health. It was meant to be.
The sound guy will be happier this time.
Yeah, way happier. Yeah, for sure. But I guess that's good. It gives us kind of a primer about all the cool stuff that we talked about, and we can cover some ground and maybe uncover some new ground tonight. So thanks for being here again. And yeah, welcome, Jeremy. So, Jeremy, tell us a little bit about what you do. How do I know you?
I know you for many reasons, but I guess the current reason is I've got a little clothing store here in town. I'm a second-generation owner. It's called Gentleman 3 Menswear. We do fine men's and fine women's wear. I also know Courtney because I was fortunate enough to be involved with a little restaurant here in town called Plum. Eric has previously been on Courtney's show and done a wonderful job. And she's doing a wonderful job with my baby. She adopted my baby, and she's doing a greater job raising it than I ever could have.
Didn't you say mistress last time?
Yes, exactly. She adopted my baby, and I gave up my mistress. It's an awkward situation.
That's awesome. So yeah, Jeremy, I love you and I love your store, and so that is how we met for sure, and we've become friends over the years. And you know, your wife's in the real estate business. She comes from a family that's long been respected in the real estate business, and so yeah, lots.
We both love cars.
We both love cars, yeah, and. Are you still driving with all your points? I'm still driving with all my points. Like, that's good, right?
Oh, I have very few points left to spare. So.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
Is that a result of your...
Very cautiously right now. We've done the AMA point deduction program.
You're the first person besides me that I know that's taken that.
Absolutely. I've done that and proceeded to get a ticket almost a week after. So they were offsetting, so we're still okay.
Did you have to do the online one or the...
No, I had to do the online one.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but it's super funny to hear that.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm currently fighting one, which I won't fight, but I'm just delaying the penalty process until January. So.
Right. Yeah, good man. Yeah, that way you can maybe accumulate. Is your birthday between now and then, so you'll catch some more back?
No, I'll have 2 that'll fall off due to tickets that will
that's right. It's 2 years after.
2 years. I've got 2 that'll fall off. I was a bad boy 2 years ago.
We could have a whole show about how to maintain points on licenses, couldn't we? But that's not why we're here.
No.
We're here because you're a badass entrepreneur and you've got good stories to tell. And you've got great experience and insight to share with our viewers who are keen to know how it is that one can maintain such a cool, awesome business over multiple generations. And so maybe just tell us the story about your business and your dad's humble beginnings, because you shared that with me last time, and I think our viewers would love to hear that.
That's really the genesis of our store. My dad is I don't recall the year, but he was an immigrant to Canada from Scotland. Came over as a young boy, was working eagerly from just about the minute he landed here in Lethbridge. Was advised by the preachers at the school that perhaps an education wasn't the smartest use of his time. He took that advice to heart and went and found a job. So at 15 years old, he started working at a little store here in Lethbridge, which just recently closed due to retirement, called McGuire's Menswear. The fellows at McGuire's had a store that, as of this year, I think was 113 years old.
Wow.
So my dad worked there, and his first job was to be the errand boy. So a judge or a lawyer or someone would buy, say, a white dress shirt, and he would fold that dress shirt up and wrap it in parchment paper and put some string around it and throw it on the back of his bike and pedal his way off and deliver it to the courthouse to them.
Yeah.
From there, just by working his butt off, he managed to get a job in Waterton, met my mom in Waterton. McGuire's had a store in Waterton.
Really?
He worked down there, yeah.
Was it a going concern in Waterton at that time?
Absolutely it was, yeah. They had a full menswear store in Waterton. There was a number of absolute, I don't want to say year-round, but certainly seasonal stores that were very successful in Waterton.
Wow.
So he spent the year down there. My mom was working in a coffee shop there. And then in coming back, he managed to partner up with a couple gentlemen, and let's say in his early 20s, and opened a store called Gentleman 3, hence the name. So 3 gentlemen, let's say my dad was 22, 32, and a 42-year-old, partnered up together. They were all employed here in the menswear business in Lethbridge, along with 27 other independent menswear stores.
Yeah, you said that. I can't believe that there was that many outfits, right?
Yeah, people used to wear a suit and tie every day. They used to wear a hat. They used to wear pressed pants on a daily basis. That's what you wore all the time. All fine gentlemen. There was a number of places in the downtown core here where there would be 5 and 6 menswear stores, men's clothing stores, haberdashers next to each other. There's certainly the Galt Museum has the records that show that. So my dad managed to open up Gentleman 3 with 2 partners, and they bought some out. Some other stores closed. Some other stores retired. Unfortunately, some people did pass away, and we ended up last year with 2 stores here in Lethbridge, and now there's just one of us. I had the good fortune of coming back after grad school and purchasing the store off my dad about 6 years ago, and since then, I guess the rest is history. I've chosen my vocation and live the life of an entrepreneur every day.
You still had Plum at that time, didn't you?
I did. I had a store in Medicine, had a Gentleman 3 menswear store in Medicine Hat. I had the, again, good fortune to partner up with a friend and open a restaurant here in town called Plum. And then I had Gentleman 3 in Lethbridge, which was my primary concern. So I was a busy boy for a short period. Well, not for a short period of time, for about 5 years, 6 years I was a busy boy. And enjoyed every minute of it and learned a lot and failed a lot. And
how many tickets did you get on that Medicine Hat drive?
That Medicine Hat drive, I got 1 ticket in 6 years.
What?
Driving that highway once a week for 6 years.
A ticket once a week or 1 ticket? Oh, yeah, 1 ticket in total.
Yeah, so there and back. I've got 1 ticket. So
well done.
About 300 drives there and back, maybe more, and literally got 1 ticket.
Good for you. So that's madness, really. I mean, anybody that knows anything about the restaurant business knows that's madness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the foresight to think, wait a minute, the growing concern that I'm involved in Gentleman 3 in Lethbridge, plus the store in Medicine Hat, are open 9 to 5:30. And then let's get in the restaurant business, which is now open 5:30 till, at that point, our hours are basically 5 till we close. So on some nights we close at 10, and some nights we close at 3 in the morning. So it wasn't very well thought out as far as diversifying my time, but it was well thought out in the terms of I had a similar customer in both cases.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense that you could cater to the needs of a demographic in Lethbridge, at all times of day. I think that's pretty cool. But I can see how that would wear on a person after a while. There's only so many hours.
Yeah, there's only so many hours. I kind of subscribe to the old adage. If you ask a busy person if you want to get something done, a busy people. You're a very busy person. I know that. And I would think if I tasked you with something, you'd probably get it done rather quickly, because you have to take your day and account for your time and take your week and plan things out and be very efficient and very effective with your meetings and your time. And I felt like it probably in that time of my life, especially post-grad school, which we've both done our MBAs, that certainly was an exercise in time management. So I was set up well to manage my time very well and get a lot of stuff done. Yeah, it meant it limited my sleep, but that was mid-20s to mid-30s, and I didn't sleep much anyways because there was bars to go to and concerts to go to. And
yeah. Hey, are you going to Russell Peters tonight?
We're not. I've seen them.
Okay.
It's very good.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah. Anybody who goes will love it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, cool. Well, I know what you mean. I mean, you got the energy and you've got vision and you've got goals and you have opportunity, so capitalize, right?
Absolutely.
And then, I suppose what happens to a lot of entrepreneurs, and presumably what happened in your case, is that you start asking yourself, okay, like how am I spending my time, and is that fulfilling, or do I want to make a change? And it sounds like you decided to do that. And I want to talk about that. So, what was the main piece that encouraged you to scale some of that back and say, okay, I do want my evenings. I want to go to a restaurant and have somebody serve me a meal instead of being on the other end of the plate.
I think certainly it was a time management more than anything. The restaurant business, especially the way that I ran Plum, it was becoming a late night establishment, and that just took a lot of hours out of my evening, and then lack of sleep, and then the next day it's kind of wash, rinse, repeat. I think I chose, like a lot of people too, as they get a little bit older, to manage my time a little bit different. I had a girlfriend who's now my wife. We have a dog together that we want to spend time with. We chose to build our own home for the second time now and general it ourselves. So eventually something has to give. And for me, the restaurant is what was the easiest thing to give for me, not just because I was able to find an amazing buyer for it, but because that was the period of time I wanted back. As my life shifted away from the hustle for something new, we're always, as I would like to think, when you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you're always looking for the next hustle, looking for the next thing. But now I'm a little bit more conscious of the time that takes and the time of day that happens. So for me, the restaurant was what had to give to ensure I could devote some time to myself, to my family, to my friends that I really only got to see in my restaurant world. So that was the main thing. The restaurant business is undoubtedly a difficult business. It is a revenue-driven business. The larger the revenue, because the margins are so small, the better off you are. I ran a relatively small restaurant, so it wasn't something where I was going to see tremendous profiteering from. So for me, it really was a labor of love. And when I saw someone else and identified another person, meaning Erica, who would come in and purchase it, I knew I could pass that labor of love on to her.
Yeah, and it's got to be satisfying that it's still there. It's still in the same spot. It's got the same name. It's still an awesome place to have a meal and a drink.
Absolutely. We don't get there as much as maybe we'd like, but it's certainly outstanding. She's done things with it I never would have. I would call Erica certainly a restaurant professional. That's where her passion is. There's a lot of things that she's been able to scale up, which made it more successful. There's a lot of things that were limiting factors for me. But we still love going there. It's no longer the bane of my existence. It's still in my cell phone as the mistress. As we were alluding to earlier, it was always in my phone as the mistress. So when somebody called, my wife would always look and hand me my cell phone and go, "Oh, the mistress is calling," which basically meant there was a reason I needed to go down and deal with the restaurant, which as an owner rarely means shake hands and ask people how wonderful their dinner was. But it often means the grease trap is backing up and it's time to go clean it. Right. Because as an owner, you're the first one who gets to do the dirty work.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you got to keep the wheels on the bus and the machine moving. And if you don't have those people in the back, man, the people in the back are you, right?
Absolutely, for sure. But
any entrepreneur would, I don't want to say gladly do those things.
But we get the upside potential too, though.
Yeah, you do.
So we get the upside of entrepreneurship. But in order to succeed, I really firmly believe you got to roll up your sleeves and get to work. And that may mean on a day like today when it snows out, we're at work 10 minutes earlier to make sure our sidewalk is completely clean of snow for all the people that we value in the downtown core taking time out of their day to come visit us.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're out there scraping it off, brushing it off, putting salt down, whatever we need to do. Yeah. And those are the things that we have to do. We have the tremendous upside that we get to benefit from, right? But we also have to take care of all the little things and dot the I's and cross the T's.
Hey, so tell me, where do you think you learned that from? Like, that's really like an approach that a servant, gives to the customer experience, but it's not something that everybody possesses. Like, where did you come by those skills at? Like, that knowledge that if you want to have people come back, each piece of the customer experience from a cleanly blown sidewalk is important. Where did you learn all that?
I had the good fortune of working for a number of great menswear retailers here in Western Canada, but I think long before that, just my dad's work ethic. My dad is as pure an entrepreneur as there was, because he didn't have the education. It was really a matter of grinding out a life for himself, and he gave us a wonderful life by busting his butt on a daily basis, recognizing that people, the service side of it isn't always just a handshake and a smile. Sometimes it's ensuring you have, in our world, in the clothing business, we ensure on a weekly basis now we have fresh flowers every week. People walk in, the first thing they see is fresh flowers from a lovely local downtown florist. We'll give them a plug. It's old ATB building.
Funky Petals.
Oh my God, Funky Petals. We'll give them a plug because they supply us with great flowers every week. People walk in, they smell that. It's wonderful. We make sure we've got a clean bathroom for people to use. We make sure we vacuum every morning. And certainly going back to either hosing off our sidewalk in the summer or cleaning it in the winter, all of those things are so much more important than just a handshake and a smile to the service. People are taking time out of their day, bringing down their hard-earned after-tax dollars, regardless of your commodity. They're coming down and they're asking you to find a way to utilize that capital. So if I'm going to sell them something, I better give them an entire experience. And that'll give them a reason we would hope to come back.
It's cool that you recognize all those little pieces. I was chatting with somebody today about our new building on 3rd, and I was, admittedly, it was a realtor that I'm trying to recruit, and I was pitching them on the experience of simply walking in the door and, you know, how you're greeted and what the process looks like and where you go to decompress and then what happens after that. You know, the customer experience begins from the moment that a person engages with you, whether it's they see a social media post, whether they call your shop, whether they're walking up to the door and looking at, you know, dirty windows, or a slippery walk, or sketchy people. You know, that can happen.
It doesn't just start at the till. Just because there's a transaction, oh, this person's buying something from me, this person's entering into a contract with me in your world. It doesn't just start then. It starts long before then and continues on long after. And I think my father taught me that when I was young, just really by osmosis, by watching him work, by watching how he dealt with people. And there's a reason why the people my father dealt with, who were probably now our grandparent, their children shop with us, and their now grandchildren shop with us. In one case, we've got a 5th generation shopping with us.
That's cool.
And you've got to be doing something right, and you've got to be looking after them. And yes, we all make mistakes for sure. But it doesn't take a lot of effort to make sure your windows are clean. It doesn't take a lot of effort to make sure your storefront is clean. It doesn't take a lot of effort to return an email in a timely fashion. All those things are part of that customer service now, more so than ever.
Well, how often have you been to a restaurant or some sort of establishment where you go into the washroom and it's like super dirty, or, you know, you look around and you think, man, like, don't you think about, you know, these little things?
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely. And still enter places today where it drives me crazy.
Right. And as an owner of a business that I've been to and understand, you know, how meticulously you work at making that stuff perfect, I can just imagine that it drives you nuts. And so yeah, mindful people, like, keep your space clean. It matters. People notice. Maybe it's just fussy people like us, though. I don't know.
But I think we're all pretty good about that in the downtown core. And I think through the BRZ, we've got the Clean Sweep program, which goes around, and that starts the process. But as business managers, as business owners, as building owners, we need to recognize that those are tools that augment what we already do. Clean Sweep comes around and helps me keep my area clean. I still have an obligation to keep my area clean. If we all keep our areas clean, we've got a pretty happy place for people to shop.
Yeah, we do.
You know, we keep asking people to come down and support local and shop Lethbridge, and you know, where the thing that's going around today is, of course, when you support local, you're helping a young daughter go to a dance class. Well, if we're going to ask people to do that, we better give them a reason to.
That's right.
And that's a value proposition in what we sell, but it's a service and a cleanliness and a politeness that goes above and beyond.
Yeah. Matter of fact, we got an offer on the Dove building today, and that's who I was chatting with when you came in, and that was part of the conversation. Was, you know, what's the cleanliness look like, and how does this all work, and when and what, and I'm pleased to say that the buyer had their concerns around that resolved in just moments. You know, we were able to establish through conversations around the BRZ and all the programs that we have in the downtown core about what a great place it is to own a business and to spend time. You and I both have businesses downtown, and I want to be here. I mean, I'm heavily invested in this neck of the woods because I believe in it, same as you do. Yeah,
we don't just have businesses. Now we've got real estate. My family's had real estate here for 30 years, so it's important to us that we see success down here.
Yeah, and you want to support others in having that success, and give kudos to people who are helping support that, like the BRZ and other organizations, police service, and all of that. So I want to just kind of take a step back and go back to those early days. Now, I recall in our conversation last week, you chatting about, you know, your decision to go to grad school and your thoughts about the menswear business at that stage in life. So maybe help our viewers relate to that point in your life. I like those types of stories because for so many people, they have a difficult time establishing a jumping off point or knowing like what's the right choice. Is now the right time for where I'm at in life? And so I like to share that part of the story because it may help somebody out there at that place now. So if you don't mind,
I started my education here at the University of Lethbridge. I spent 1.5 years there. Academically, there was no reason for me to continue that part of my education. I was putting zero effort in and zero time in, so it was very wise of me to kind of step away and take a second to reevaluate.
Save your tuition?
Absolutely, save my tuition. My first 1.5 years were on scholarship, so I didn't feel like I was kind of beholden to anybody. I didn't know my parents. I didn't have to put on my own credit card or anything. It was scholarship. This is easy. And then all of a sudden I realized, geez, I'm wasting a lot of good opportunity here. So I took a great opportunity, had some very generous relatives, and I moved to Kelowna, BC. Moved to God's country. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. I moved there in 92, 93, so that would be long before everybody else in the world moved there. So I got to enjoy Kelowna proper as it was, not as it is now, and went and did my undergraduate degree there. In doing that, I needed some work. So I had a history of working in the grocery business. I worked for a small little grocer here in Lethbridge that a lot of people will know. It was called Super Sam. It was a West Side grocery store that was locally owned, that was beloved by everybody. Probably know hundreds of people who worked there. Everybody kind of at one time or another had a job at Super Sam. And when I left here, I went and thought, well, the grocery business is obviously something that I enjoy. I might as well continue. And I was hired in Kelowna by Canada Safeway, and I thought, well, this is even more fantastic.
Right.
My career can go on this pathway and look at the incomes that the managers and regional managers and stuff make. This is fantastic.
Right.
And I was managed to get on the management trainee program for BC. I believe at the time, I was the youngest chosen in BC to be on the management trainee program. So I thought, well, again, this is fantastic.
This is what I'm doing.
My career is set. And then my undergrad's in economics, so I say this tongue-in-cheek, the usual efficiencies of a union reared their ugly head, and we were locked out of our contract. So my idealism of this is going to be a great industry to work into was quickly shattered once I realized how unions work and how union contracts work and collective bargaining and all the rest of it, because here I am in my very early 20s with apartment rent and groceries and fuel bills and no income besides strike pay. So very quickly I thought, geez, I need a job, and I went and found work in a menswear store in Kelowna, who I approached having no background whatsoever besides my father owning a menswear store.
But you hadn't worked there at that time.
I had never worked there. I certainly enjoyed clothes. My dad was very generous and always has been, and provided me with a great wardrobe for school. I'd never spent a day working in there, so I had the opportunity to approach a gentleman who owned one of the stores, and I said, look, this is my dad's store, can I have a job? And he said, well, if that's your dad and that's his store, we know him and he's got a great operation, so of course you can. So my first shift working there, I was put in charge of a little boutique store they had and left alone for the entire day. So I pulled a 10-hour shift my first day, having no idea how to do anything in the menswear business besides button up my own shirt, and the rest is kind of history. So after working in the menswear business, I decided it's time to go back to university and get a degree. I should get an education. So I went and got my economics degree.
Is that what you're studying at the U of L too? Was economics?
No, I was studying nothing at the U of L. My marks reflected I studied nothing.
What were you supposed to be studying at the U of L?
I was in my first year.
Okay.
So it was
Just
a little bit. Obviously, I was going to go the management stream.
Right.
What that ended up looking like, I don't know.
Right.
But I studied mountain biking. I studied sleeping in.
I studied sleeping in with hangovers quite a bit.
Not bad doing that, but I actually was working at Super Sam at the time, so I really spent most of my time working.
Yeah.
So instead of studying or instead of going to class, I would take a shift at work and go to work instead.
That's fairly productive still.
It was productive, absolutely. And fortunately, I realized when I had to start paying tuition for myself in Kelowna and rent and everything else that I still needed to work. But it was time to get the degree over with in, well, what amounted to 4 years. So I managed to finish my degree in economics in Kelowna. And at that point, I was working for a different menswear store, another fine retailer who taught me a great deal. He's probably the one, his name's Wayne McDermott. He has McDermott's Menswear in downtown Kelowna. He's probably the store that taught me the most about really putting that extra effort into customer service and really putting that extra effort into your workplace and your surroundings.
Right.
Everything in that store was a little soldier. Everything was in its place nicely. We were mopping the floors daily. We were making sure everything's perfectly vacuumed. And it really was not an art gallery in there, but it certainly was a very clean, very precise, very elegant store space. And that also included us working there. You know, we were told to shine our shoes. No, I'm sorry, you have to wear a necktie. We sell neckties, so therefore wear a necktie. We had to dress appropriately, and it really taught me a lot about what it meant to present yourself a certain way in the community.
Right.
And it was very authentic because he has a very successful store with a lot of repeat customers. So I was working there, and I finished my university degree, and I thought, well, I don't see myself in today's current climate being able to open a store like Wayne's or a store like my father's without some sort of extra education. I didn't know very much about finance per se. I didn't know a lot about accounting per se. So I thought, well, the easiest way to do that, and certainly something nobody can take away from me, is an advanced degree.
Yeah.
So I decided in 1999 to go to Calgary and do my MBA.
Yeah.
So in going to do my MBA, I created a tool chest of skills that I could then employ in the future. What that future held, I wasn't quite sure at that time. But I felt like now with an undergraduate degree in economics, I understood the macro and the micro side. I felt like I needed a few more tools that an MBA would offer me, specific to finance, strategic marketing, branding, strategic human resources, all the things that certainly you employ on a daily basis. And then on top of that, I was really fortunate to have the practical work ethic and practical skill set that I gained from my father, and then also in a few stores I worked in.
Right.
So I kind of feel like I put all that together, and for me that was the real jumping off point of, okay, now I'm going to go into the world and try and make my mark.
I'm reflecting back on those years, so say 99 and 2000, the early 2000s, as they say, after we learned that our computers would still work and nothing really happened. No.
Absolutely. We all survived.
We did all survive. But at that time, at least in my opinion, there was way less information available. I mean, the internet was out there. We'd had email by that time for 6 or 8 years or something like that. But
still pretty fresh, though. My first Hotmail account was in grad school in 2000.
Yeah, right.
I had a great friend in Kelowna whose father taught AP classes in high school. Yeah. And he was involved with probably about 20 other professors throughout North America in what we now, I think, refer to as the AP program, and advanced placement classes. They all talk to each other through what we would know as the first generation of the internet.
Okay.
So he would boot up his computer, which was an Apple, and he would open up a DOS shell, essentially, and they would send virtual emails, or virtually what we would now call emails, to each other through what was a dial-up, very, very rudimentary setup of the internet, which I was blown away. This would have been like 94, 95. Yeah. I'd never seen anything like this.
I guess, I was getting my years mixed up because in 96 is when I had my first email account at Mount A.
Yeah.
And even at that time, that was pretty much all you did. I mean, you could go online and find some websites, but,
And you rarely did that because with 28.8 dial-up modem, it would take you 9.5 minutes to download a 3-sentence email.
Yeah, that's true. Where I was going with that was, now that there's access to so much information, YouTube is a huge resource for people who, want skills training, and then web forums, and then now there's a whole fleet of entrepreneur trainers out there and courses around that. And, you can learn to run a business from your mom's basement when you're 12 years old, and if you're successful, you can make a lot of money. And so I wonder, do you see in this day and age as much value going back and doing an MBA to learn those things that you mentioned? Say, finance, or say marketing, or say, bookkeeping, those kind of fundamental things that you wanted to know so that you could successfully run your business. Do you think that if you were you today with that mindset that you would go to an advanced degree, or do you think that entrepreneurial spirit would be alive and well in you enough that you would undertake that effort yourself and just go about finding the information independently?
I really believe, that's a great question. That's an enormous question. I think you can spend hours talking about that. And you almost end up in a bit of a circular argument, like a dog chasing its tail. I think there's a value to our MBA that cannot be replaced. I feel in today's day and age, it may not be as important, but I'd also like to think that the MBA programs have changed drastically, as opposed to where I went into an accounting class and they literally taught us the debits and credit sides of accounting. I would like to think in today's day and age, an MBA program would say, okay, look, if you're going to go be an entrepreneur and start your own business, you need to understand how to read a spreadsheet, but it'd be silly for you to worry about the inputting of that. Hire that out. There's other more essential tools that you need to develop. Human resources management perhaps would be one of them. Whereas in my MBA in 2000, that was an elected course. That was probably the best course I took. How to motivate people, how different people find value, trying to develop a work ethic, the core competencies within your enterprise, and how you can not just live by example, but you can have all your staff buy into that thought process and continue to live it on a daily basis. All of those things were so unique in 2000, which I think would be there'd be a lot more touchy-feely, I think, in today's MBA.
Oh, sure.
Certainly a lot of strategy and all those key skill sets, but I don't know that you'd spend as much time today doing the basic accounting or learning managerial finance, because a lot of those things, I think, the more successful you get, you'd want to have an expert in that field working with you, working for you. So today, would I do it again? I probably would suggest that I would not, but that's given my knowledge today.
Yeah.
So hindsight's 20/20. If I had that knowledge today, that I would know to hire out some key parts of my business, and to focus on things that I never knew in the past I had to focus on, well, then the answer would be, of course, I wouldn't do my MBA again.
Right.
But I only know those things because of doing my MBA. So there lies my circular argument.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I thought that back in those days I wanted to have some training so that I could eventually buy a car dealership. I think I shared that with you. Actually, that was off camera. Last time.
We both had said that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then my kind of backup plan was to have finance in a CFA so that I could be an analyst, which I find super funny now to think of myself as like an analyst, because I'm not. I mean, I'm super analytical, but the type of work that would involve doesn't suit me very well at all.
No, exactly.
So yeah, I know what you mean. Retrospectively, it's hard to know. You only know what you know when you know it, and we both made, I think, great choices, and here you are, and here I am. So tell me about that journey. So finished MBA, and then you're like, all right, now what?
Like most MBAs who are looking for a job, I became a consultant. The running tagline with MBAs who can't find a job is, "Oh, I'm a consultant. What are you doing? I'm consulting." But
you instantly start billing out at $1,000 an hour, and all these clients just start lining up for you.
No, exactly. I moved my entire life to Toronto. I consult on a gig with what ironically becomes a dress shirt manufacturer. So I'm still being drawn back into the menswear business, and I find out very quickly that. My job there was to essentially being a salesperson. I went in with these grandiose dreams of being a consultant. So in no time, I'll work in a Toronto boutique consulting firm, or I'll climb up through the hierarchy of Deloitte, and in no time, I'll be wearing a tie to work and working on Bay Street. And then the reality is, my job starting out as consulting on my own was to be a salesman. So my job was to entertain my product that I had, which was a dress shirt company, throughout the southern U.S. So as I spent 6 weeks traveling between New Orleans and Las Vegas, which was still one of the greatest trips of my life, I wasn't a very effective consultant because I discovered rather quickly that my product wasn't correct for that marketplace. We had tremendous product in an urban environment. We had tremendous product in a population-dense environment. But in a casual, relaxed, don't worry about it, we'll get to it later, it's too hot, it's too humid, in that kind of environment, we did not have the right product. As a result, coming back to write my analysis was, we have the wrong product, you don't need me, and consulted myself out of a job. So I found it really quick. I'm not sure I really wanted to be a consultant and live that world.
But that is kind of the job, though, isn't it? I mean, kind of
is there that much honesty in it? I don't know. Maybe I failed on that.
Yeah, I think maybe you're supposed to try harder at keeping the checks coming.
Yeah, strategically, maybe I needed to rephrase things. I'm not sure. But I did the consultant role for probably about a year. Ran into a bit of a dry spell. I graduated from my MBA in 2002. Certainly, we had a nice little blip of successful years economically in North America at the beginning of that, but things started getting a little dry very quickly as far as job prospects go. My father happened to be in a situation where he was buying out his final partner. Gentleman 3 Menswear was going to end up with just my dad owning it. And he said, hey, if you've got some time to kill through the summer, why don't you come home and help me? So I thought, oh, that'd be great. It would be nice to be. We all live in the cities we're born in, and then we look for an avenue out as quick as possible.
Yeah.
And as soon as we get out, we realize, oh, geez, it's not so bad. There's a lot of great things about being back at home.
That's right.
So I came back home, worked with my dad, which was a wonderful experience, and spent really the next year or two utilizing my MBA like probably I never had before, because the menswear business and my father's store were very much run kind of ad hoc, seat of the pants. What are we doing today? I'm not sure. What did we do yesterday? I don't know. There was no forward thinking and planning. There certainly was very little analytical tools used. So I tried to employ those right away, and I saw very quickly that most of that had never been done in the past, and it was successful. We were seeing the fruits of our labor almost instantly by changing this a little bit, adjusting that. Yes, there's still a romance that we need to do to demonstrate to the customer why this product is wonderful from a sales standpoint. But boy, can we clean up the back end fast by being a little bit more pragmatic and analytical. So I came back, worked with my father, and after really what ended up being about a year and a half, 2 years of that, I thought to myself, well, this is silly. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I went to the University of Calgary because they were a proponent of the entrepreneurship degree. And I thought this would be a wonderful opportunity for to try that. So I gave my father, written on a old school, a napkin, basically, I think it's a piece of fax paper. I grabbed a piece of fax paper and said, okay, here's how much inventory we have, here's our sales, here's this, that, and that, discount this, that's the dollar value that in this market I think it's worth. And he said, oh, okay, that's fine, let me talk to my accountant. And I thought, oh, great, the accountant's, he's a managing partner at KPMG, he's so smart, it's like, he's going to tear mine apart. And he looked at it and verified his numbers over the last few years, and he said, yeah, that's a generous offer, but it's a fair offer. So my dad said, oh, I like generous, and we shook hands, and that was that. So all of a sudden I had bought myself a menswear store.
That's cool.
So I thought, well, here we go. Now it's time to get serious about this. So for me, that's how I kind of ended up in my current vocation. Obviously, like most entrepreneurs, like Courtney's witnessing in his career, other opportunities pop up, and some are great, and some require lots of capital that we may not have, and some require human capital and some intellectual ability that we do have, and we're able to pounce on some, and some we wish we pounced on that run by, and sometimes we pounce on the wrong one.
It happens for sure. And so, so you've owned, what year is that?
That was, you know what? I think that was 2006.
Yeah, cool.
I'd have to look at the records. I think it was 2006.
And so I'm just curious, when you're talking about some of the things that you might tweak in a menswear business for the sake of our listeners who may have businesses with inventory management. What's that look like? I look at a business like that and I think, man, like, how many shirts and socks and ties, and how do you know what to do with all that? What's the life expectancy of those things, and when do you start blowing stuff? I mean, how do you assess that? Is it
well? And that was the difficult thing. The life expectancy in our business, especially in finer clothing, is basically 6 months.
Okay.
Once the season is done, it's virtually depreciated to 20 cents on the dollar. So it's not worthless, but it loses its value very quickly. So we really had to look at the commodities that we had done well with over the last, say, 5 years.
And you need records of that.
We need records for that. And that was, I guess, if I back up one step, that was the first thing. We implemented an entire new CRM system, which took into, we didn't need it for the accounting side, but we certainly needed it to manage our customers, and we certainly needed it for inventory management. So we took what was basically a very rudimentary DOS shell, and we moved very fancy-like into a Windows-based operating system.
Wow.
It was very fancy. My dad, I think, swore until the day he passed at the frustrations of dealing with that. But for us, then it allowed me to, I could ask my dad on any day of the week, how much inventory do you think we have here? And he would give me a dollar value. And because of his 50-plus years of working in that business, instinctively, he was able to get that, well, let's say within 10%.
Really?
Maybe sometimes he could probably get it within 2 or 3%.
Wow.
But the difference is, but you're still 10% off. I'm going to give you the exact figure.
Right.
How many pairs of socks do you think we sold? Oh, we sold 200. I'm like, well, no, actually we sold 340, and now we only have 30 in inventory. So my records show that if we had 500 in inventory, we might have sold 450. So we were actually under inventoried in that.
Right.
And of course, the worst thing you can do in any retail environment is be over inventoried.
Yeah.
So that was probably the most important thing that taught us and allowed us to look into, is where are we over inventoried. It's wonderful to think, oh, well, we need dress shirts, but if our records show that we don't sell white dress shirts, simple plain white dress shirts, as much as we thought, why are we stocking 100 on every given day?
Right.
Why don't we stock 10 or 20 and then take that excess capital and find something more interesting? And certainly that's how my father's store has always been founded upon, which was a notion of you'll find interesting and unique items in our store. In Gentleman 3, you always find something that you may not find elsewhere. We're not scared to order in a shirt full of flowers, or a crazy printed jacket and my shirt has flowers too, or yellow pants. By taking the time to search the marketplace for unique items, and our data back that up.
Right.
Our unique items are what sold. Before that, my father's instinct would say, oh, well, that's what we need to buy. But you'd always revert back to sometimes the safe.
Right.
Buy the black pant, buy the white shirt.
Right.
And by implementing an inventory management control, I could see what sold best.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much about margin and percentages. It's really more about sell-throughs. The margin doesn't matter if I buy 10 items and only sell 2.
Yeah.
I'm still making no money. But if I know that instead of buying 10 items, I should buy 4 and I'll sell 4,
Right.
or buy 5 and I'll sell 5, that's where our inventory management really...
Yeah, and you can always order more if you know what your turnover is, and then you're not, hanging on to stuff that's not moving. Yeah, it's. How many items would be in the store at any given time? How many SKUs?
Probably somewhere about 4,000 items.
Yeah.
4,000 items, probably on any given time, a million two in inventory.
Yeah.
And in our business, we want that inventory as clean as possible, because that is all our profit.
What does clean mean?
I want everything sold.
I see.
When we go on sale in January and August, any retail operation that goes on sale, typically, unless you're a promotion-driven business, and let's clarify that, I am not promotion-driven, I am product and service-driven. There's nothing in my store that's on sale tomorrow that wasn't on sale today. That's just not the type of business we do.
Yeah.
And it's not coupon-driven, and it's not discount-driven.
Yeah.
So if I've got 4,500 items in my store, and size runs in each item, when it comes to January and August, it's time for me to clear those items out. When I'm clearing those items out, essentially that's my profit.
Yeah.
The previous 5 months of a 6-month season has paid all my bills,
Yeah.
and now I need to clear that out and turn that into capital and cash to reinvest and or put in my own pocket.
Right.
And that's the most difficult thing. In the menswear business, successful stores always look like they are successful on paper. Our balance sheet is tremendous. Our income statement is fantastic. It's capital in hand, cash in the bank, operating loans at 0 that are the most important things.
Yeah. How many different manufacturers of those, say, 4,000 SKUs?
Right now, I probably deal with about 40 different vendors.
Yeah.
Some sales agencies will represent multiple vendors, but I probably deal with about 40 different vendors, give or take.
Yeah.
I like dealing with less. I'm not a big store, so I don't have the ability, the stroke to go into an order or into an appointment and write a really, really big order, big dollar value order, and therefore get tremendous terms with them and negotiate a discounted rate or consignment goods or anything like that. I just don't have that ability. So as a result, I like dealing with less vendors and dealing with more labels that they offer.
Yeah.
Then I become a little bit more significant to them, and they become more significant to me, and then it becomes a real partnership.
Right.
We have a partnership and a relationship with our clients, but on the back end, we also have it with our vendors. Whether it comes to payables, whether it comes to just-in-time inventory, co-op dollars, advertising. It's the wonderful thing about the menswear business in Canada especially is it really is a relatively small business. There's probably 120 great stores in Canada. You've got some big dominant players like Harry Rosen, but there's about 120 like me. Of those 120, you'll have some great ones and some less great ones, some with great credit, some with terrible credit. So there's about 80 good stores. I'd like to think we're in that group of 80.
Yeah.
So it's a relatively small market. And within that small market, I think we do a great job at developing relationships with our vendors. And we become a really important cog in their wheel.
Oh, sure.
Even though I may not be the biggest consumer of their goods, I'm important to them. I pay them in a timely fashion. I treat all their staff with respect. They respect what we're doing. They know that we are a good operator. We don't discount their goods to clear it out. We do all the things that they want to have their brand succeed in Canada, and they in turn help us out.
One of the things that I want to get back to is you were talking about consistent sales and discounting, and I wonder if you feel the same way. I see a lot of newer entrepreneurs, maybe working in the web space or who have different businesses, and you can see a lot more of this online now than you used to be able to. But maybe it's because they're experiencing harder times, or because they're carrying the wrong products, or because their marketing efforts aren't delivering. It seems like they always go into sale mode or discount mode or bonus mode or coupon mode, and I think, gosh, once you've opened the door to be that kind of retailer, isn't it hard to go back to being a value, quality driven organization? Because I feel like some of those small kind of niche companies want that for themselves, but they haven't found the way to do it. And so the way to get the business is to create door crashers. But if you have to do that every week,
it becomes a race to the bottom,
doesn't it?
You're eradicating your margin. You then have to trade on volume. So now you have to promote even more. And when I say promote, I typically mean discount. So now you've got to promote even more to try and grow your gross revenue because your margin's so much tighter. And then it's difficult for you to provide a lot of value because the margin isn't there. The net profit isn't there to invest in the value items, to invest in great staff, to invest in a nice storefront and whatever. I certainly don't believe in that school of retail. It does exist. It exists very well and very successfully. Costco functions on a very low margin and just pushes volume. But it's a very simplistic model they have within their storefronts. Let's put up some shelving and let's stack it high, and then everybody will buy it.
Carry what we carry, and that's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think in our world, we've never subscribed to that model, and we really enjoy being, I guess, to use a term, higher end, because that really allows us to develop that relationship with our clients, to become friends with them, to treat them like family. And part of the way that we can do that is when they buy something from me, I would like to think that they trust I've put a retail value on it a retail price on it that's full of value. It's not full of artificial margin to cover the discount that I'm going to have to do on Black Friday.
Right.
It's not full of artificial margin to cover Boxing Day sales.
Right.
I don't do any of that, so as a result, I don't need to be 20% higher. Right? The markup to markdown scenario, to me, doesn't lead to long-term success. It does work. It works in a lot of big companies, but in a small... Canada was built on a very kind of European model of retail, small boutique stores. Certainly here in Lethbridge in the downtown core, that's what we have. Our mall has got some corporate stores in it, but for the most part, in the downtown core outside of Park Place Mall, it's small boutique, we'll call it mom and pop stores, and that's really a European model of service driven. Yeah. As soon as you start creating a discount model of coupons or any sort of give back, you've eradicated all the value from your proposition.
And people hang around the corner and they're kind of waiting, right? Waiting for the sale sign to go up.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. Why would they buy today when they know it's going to be on sale tomorrow?
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Or worse yet, why buy today when my friend got it for 10% off last week? Yeah. Why don't I get it for 10% off? And a small, I've always called Lethbridge a large Tabor rather than a small Calgary. We're a large community, we're a large town. We're not a small city. Yeah. So we have that kind of handshake mentality on a lot of things. Yeah. And as a result, if Courtney, if you come in to purchase something, you better know that I didn't give one of your staff members 10% off last week on it, because then you're going to find that out eventually, and then who loses? I lose the most. Yeah. You overpay by 10%, but I lose because now neither of you are shopping, because it's like, oh.
one of the things that I think is kind of a body of knowledge that is I don't know, is being lost, is that at the end of the day, a great customer experience and something as enjoyable as going into your store, seeing you and your staff and your dog there actually caring that somebody has graced you with their presence, with their hard-earned cash, after-tax dollars, as you say, there has to be margin in that. Like, that's an experience that if you value, you have to be prepared to pay for. And we're not talking, 20 points above anybody else, but it's not going to be the same experience that you're going to get going to Amazon or going to Sears, nor would you expect that or anybody else. But it seems to me that there's a little bit of that being lost on people who expect the deals all the time, or who expect something for nothing all the time, when they're there because of you. They're there because they enjoy the experience, and the reason that infrastructure is in place, the reason that you can afford to do that type of work instead of something else that you're equally qualified for, is because you're compensated for doing it. Right?
Sure, absolutely.
And I would just like to remind our viewers of that, because you have to pay to play, and if you value those things and you expect a certain level of service, don't be angry that I couldn't buy that thing for $5 less.
Sure.
I would rather give you my $5 and have you be you, right?
But then there's also, as the retailer, regardless of consumer good, as the retailer, I have an obligation not to take advantage of you.
Well, yeah.
If you're going to trust me that I'm going to bring in fair goods, I'm going to charge you a fair price for them.
Yeah.
I need to make some money too.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm spending 6 months a year at the craps tables in Vegas because I made so much money on you. But
I would hope that you wouldn't spend it on craps tables. At least go to a whitefish.
Exactly, that's right. But I do have an obligation to charge a fair price.
Yeah.
Because going back a little bit, when you said there's so much information now with the internet, we have so much perfect information out there, especially in your business. Your consumers probably come in ready armed with tons of information, and it's up to you to disseminate what's real and factual from what's hopes and dreams in their world.
Yeah.
The same thing happens with me. Oh, well, this is this price online. I'm like, yes, it is, absolutely.
Right.
But if you take a second to look, they're at 10% off online. Look at my price all day, every day.
Right. And I get to go into the store with maybe a preconceived notion about my style, what I should look like or what I should wear, and then you can tell me that, hey, that's wrong, man. That jacket looks like garbage on you. Like, please let me help you. And you just can't buy that.
Well, and that's the service and the expertise that has to be also put into that retail price margin. We function predominantly off a mathematical margin, not necessarily, that looks like it's expensive, so let's price it expensive.
Right.
We work within a mathematical margin, and we incorporate into there a very small advertising dollar, because we don't spend a lot of advertising. We'd rather take $10 off an item than buy a billboard.
Right.
I'm sure Patterson Group isn't happy to hear that, but that's how we function. I don't need to spend a lot of money advertising if I'm going to give that discount back to you. But within that margin we have, you have to pay for an expertise. We do have an expertise in our world.
Yeah.
Just like if you go to a chiropractor, they have an expertise in their world.
That's right.
If you go to a shoe store, they have an expertise in their world. You have to pay that, and that's incorporated in that margin.
Yeah. In all of our services, I mean, even look at doctors, right? I mean, if we expected all of our doctors to work for, $10 an hour, then you could expect that we wouldn't have very qualified people, that they wouldn't spend very much time with you, and that they'd be churning people through their offices like mad. Right?
Absolutely.
And it's no different in your business or my business.
Well, and everybody likes to deal with a winner.
It's
Everybody
true.
wants to deal with the best.
Yeah.
And as long as that's an affordable metric in their own world, everybody wants to deal with the best. And who's the best? Typically, it's not necessarily the person who's charging the most, but it's typically the busiest person.
Yeah.
You're probably going to pay a top dollar, whether it's a percentage, whether it's a dollar value, whether it's a retail price, because they're good at what they do.
Yeah.
Being good at what you do isn't cheap.
Yeah.
I can make no apologies for selling fine product, because I also have great staff behind me. Those staff deserve to be compensated well.
Yeah.
Those staff deserve to have time off, great paychecks, and all the things that go along with working for me, because they've worked really hard. We've hopefully trained them well, or they've taken on, like I did, through osmosis, a wonderful skill set that then consumers appreciate.
And then you get to take a well-deserved holiday, for example.
A holiday?
Yeah.
What's a holiday?
Yeah, right. Hey, we're winding up, so I want you to leave our viewers with some sage advice. If you can reflect back on Jeremy Dukin, the young guy considering his entrepreneurial journey from your view in life now, what would you tell him and what would you convey as a message to some of our other viewers today?
I think I would double down on one of the things that I was blessed with right from the beginning, and that's work ethic. I would double down on that historically. Yes, I have an economics degree. Yes, I have an MBA. Those two things are wonderful. Nobody can ever take them away from me. Perhaps I'd be in a different place, and I'm very happy with where I am in life, but perhaps I would have been in a slightly different place if I had just doubled down on a skill set that I had intrinsically, that my father taught me, that I looked around at the people I was friends with and the people that the parents of my friends and stuff, they were all hardworking people. And I think today, more than ever, I would double down on that work ethic. So it's wonderful if you want to go to university, make sure it's for something that's useful for your career. Mm-hmm. If it's not, and if you're spinning your wheels trying to find yourself, that's fine. But if you really want to find a career, go start at the bottom, start in the mailroom, double down, roll up your sleeves, work your butt off, and give the people around you every reason to promote you, every reason to work with you, and every reason to work for you. And inevitably, they'll probably end up working for you.
And they say, when you've got your 10,000 hours in, you're a pro, get your 10,000 hours in early, get those reps in, right?
Exactly. And then put another 10,000 in to get to an expert.
Level up. So good to talk to you, Jeremy. Thanks for making the time twice.
Twice.
Yeah, that makes you a really awesome guy. It's so good to talk to you.
Third time's a charm, so I can't wait.
This is Jeremy Ducan, Gentleman 3, and this has been another show of the Dooryard Union. Join us each Wednesday, except for when I'm on holidays or sick, at 5:30 right here at Jess FM and Jess TV. Thanks so much. We'll catch you next week.